This is task 1H part 3. You've created the new booking form and we've looked at the stages that are going to be necessary to add the data to the tables. First of all, we're going to be adding the booking details to the booking table, and we're going to do that using an append query that will add the data from this form here to the booking table. Now we just need to remind ourselves what we called each of these text boxes. So if I double click on them, we'll get the properties, and under all I can see I'll call that new booking ID, new booking date, new payment due, and new church ID. So that should be fairly straightforward to remember. What we're going to do now is create the new query. So I'm going to go to create, and I'm going to create a query in design view. Now we don't need any tables because we're getting our data from the form. I'm going to save this query before I carry on, and I'm going to call it QRY for query append booking, because that's what it's doing. It's appending the booking table. I'm going to change it to an append query because we want to append, that means add record to the booking table. So I do append, and now I can choose which table I'm going to append to, which will be the booking table. If I click on OK, there we go, and we now have this option here called append to. Now what we need to do is get the data from the form into this query. So I'm going to start off by looking at the new booking ID. Now we have to create a new field for this. So my new field, I'm going to start with the word letters QRY because that just distinguishes it from everything else. So this is going to be our QRY new booking ID, and it's just a temporary name for it. And we now need to collect that data from this form. So to collect the data from a form, we use the word forms. So that will tell us the query that it needs to find the data in a form. Now we need to say, using the exclamation mark, which form it's going to be. So again, in square brackets we put the name of the form, which will be new booking, and we put that in square brackets again. We use the exclamation mark, and now we're going to say which control on that form we want, which is going to be new booking ID. So this is just a temporary field name. This tells us it's coming from a form. This tells us which form it is, and this tells us the control name, which was what we saved that text box as. I now need to say where we're going to append that data to. We're going to append that data to the booking ID in the booking table. Now we'll save this, and I'm going to make a deliberate mistake here. We're going to try running it, and you'll see nothing comes up. The reason nothing comes up is because the form at the moment is in design view, so there's nothing to show. If I put it back into datasheet view, okay, you might be thinking, oh, where have these come from? Well, that's because they're still in the new pitch allocation table. I didn't delete them. Now we're looking for booking ID 11. So if we now look at this query in datasheet view, I'm not actually going to run the query, I'm just going to look at it in datasheet view. We get this strange symbol. Now there's no need to worry about that. This seems to be a bug in Access that's been around for quite a while, since 2010, or the version 2010 of Access, and it does actually work when we try to run the query properly. Now we need to do this for all of the other calculated fields. So a lot of the things are going to stay the same. We're going to be using colon all the way through to that exclamation mark, forms new booking for each one. So we'll start with the church ID, so that was, we'll give it a temporary name, and it's going to be forms new booking, and then we called it new church ID. Okay, so you can see the process that we go through. So that will be for the church ID. Next one we'll do will be the booking date, so we'll do that one here. So again, we'll give it a temporary name, query new booking date, and again we'll put new booking date was the name we gave to it, and we'll append that to the booking date. And then the next one will be the payment due. So query new payment due. And we'll do payment due. Now I'm doing all these in one go, but it might be an idea as you do them just to build them up one by one, particularly if you end up making a mistake like I've just done here. I've got to try and work out what I've done wrong. I put 2 colons in, that's not a problem then. But if something does go wrong, it's much easier to do it one by one. So test them one at a time as you go along. So let's test them now. I'm not going to run it because I don't want to add them to the table. Okay, and we can see it's not actually putting any data through, and that usually has something to do with the problem with access with these funny symbols. So we're not going to worry too much about that at this stage because we can see that there is data there. Well, I haven't actually got a church, so I do need to choose one of those. And what we'll do now is we'll actually run that query. So this time I'm going to run it using the exclamation mark. It says I'm going back to append 1 row. So I'll click on yes. Now let's have a look at that booking table and see what it comes up as. There it is, look. 2nd of the 8th 14, 16th of the 8th 14, it pulled that data through. It didn't pull the church ID through, and it seems to have made paid to be a tick, which we don't want. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete that record so that we can use it again. And we'll go back to our query. We'll just have a look at what might have gone wrong with the church ID. It's probably just that I'd only just selected it and I hadn't clicked anywhere else, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. I think if I'd have clicked here it would have probably registered it by the time I've moved on. So what we need to do is the last few fields we need to set to be false. Okay, so that is the reminder letter, the phone call, and whether or not it's been paid, to make sure they do go as false. So we're going to do query new paid, and we'll set that to be false. Not getting it from a form, it doesn't need to come from a form at all. And we'll do the same for the others. Query new reminder letter false, and we'll set that to be on the reminder letter. And query new phone call false, and we'll set the phone call reminder to be false there as well. That's where it sets it to be false at the top. Okay, so let's have a look at that data. Well, the zeros have come through, that's good. The church ID has come through this time, it's a funny symbol again. So we'll go back to design view, we'll run our query. It says it's going, it says it can't duplicate the output destination paid. So there's something slightly wrong gone there, so we need to just have a look and see exactly what the problem is. So it says a duplicate output destination, so it means that we possibly used it twice. There we have, I'd put the church ID as paid, so that should be church ID, and that would explain why we got that tick box earlier and why the church ID hadn't come through. And that's why it's a good idea just to do the things one at a time. So now let's run it. You're about to append 1 row, so let's say yes. Now let's have a look at our booking table. There it is, those 3 are false. It's put the church ID through, it's got the dates through, that's brilliant. I'll just delete this record so we can use that number 11 again, although it doesn't matter because the next time you create a new booking it will go to number 12. So that's our append query for booking. Just to remind you, we pull the data from here. So we pull those 4 amounts of data from here, and we use false for the 3 yes/no fields. So the next thing you'll go on to is append this data to the new pitch allocation table.